Hello, it's Antoinette Lattouf with the Weekend Briefing, and today's guest proves that runner-up could actually be considered first place. It's Poh Ling Yeow from Masterchef. She came in second place in the first season and now has come full circle to be Masterchef judge. We talk about how she was quite an introvert who liked to draw and cook, and now what it's like being a woman in the public eye who has to eat on television. Poh, welcome to the Weekend Briefing.
Thank you, Antoinette. Such a pleasure to be here.
I want to start off by talking about Sharon,
Yes,
because you said goodbye to Sharon
I did.
many years ago.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, I think I was about 25 at the time, 24, 25. I'm really bad with times. I'm not one of those people that 1964, I did
Yeah.
this and that. So what happened was I didn't realize until that moment that Sharon wasn't on my birth certificate. And I'd always written Sharon Yeow Poh Ling. You always write your last name. That's the order with Chinese names. So then what happened was when we moved to Australia, all it required was for one naughty boy to go, let's go bowling, Poh Ling. And it was like, I was like, I'm done. Let's go with Sharon.
Sharon, I
Yeah,
love it. They're like
yeah.
the Aussiest name ever. Sharon.
Yeah, so I had that already in Malaysia, but we never really used it. But I always
Oh,
wrote it on all my books.
why did you have Sharon?
Everyone in Malaysia has an English name. Like
Yeah,
mum's
right.
Christina, dad's Stephen, brother's Casper. Yeah, so it's really common.
Okay, so did you choose that or did your parents choose
Parents
it?
did.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've had it since I was born,
Right.
but I didn't realize
Oh, I
it
thought
was.
it was a name you gave yourself.
No,
here.
No. So
Okay.
then I was like, I'm going to go with my English name.
Yeah.
And then when I turned 20, when I was around 24,
Mm.
my ex, who's a filmmaker, he made a short film and I was the actor in it. And he just wrote, he goes, I'm going to use your Chinese name. And he called the name Poh Ling. And in the credits, he wrote Poh Ling Poh Ling played by Poh Ling. And it won the biggest short film prize at the time in Australia.
Wow.
So we had a little bit of like local press and stuff like that. And from there on, everyone that knew me just from that, it just started calling me Poh Ling.
Yeah.
And Matt's like, I think it's time that you did that. Because
Yeah.
he'd been encouraging me to do it for many years. But I was just sort of, I don't know, I just felt uncomfortable about it.
What was
And
making you uncomfortable?
I think it coincided with me starting to paint full time, and I thought it would seem really pretentious, like telling everyone, now that I'm a painter, my name's Poh Ling.
Right.
And so I was just, I don't know, it just made me feel uncomfortable. It just felt like such a big deal to me at the time. But then everyone just latched onto it so quickly. There was just
Yep.
like hardly any transition. Like people just it just felt so seamless. The transition from dropping Sharon and
Do you miss Sharon?
not really. No. I barely when I hear someone call me that, it's almost
Do you respond to it?
yeah, I
Oh,
do.
you still do.
Yeah. It doesn't offend me or anything. You know how
Yeah.
some people are like, oh, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't care.
What do you make now, looking back at the fact that even in Malaysia, people take on an English name? Do you think it's something that needs to be done, or it's just kind of pandering to make things easier for the West?
No, it's not, because within Malaysia, everyone does it. It's not because it's mainly Chinese, Indian, and Malay, the population.
Right.
Yeah, it's just a leftover from British I think maybe the British. I'm not sure, but like
Yeah. A bit of a
everyone-
colonial hangover.
maybe, yeah, but I don't think anyone has a real hangover about it. Yeah.
And so you moved to Adelaide, you settle there, and drawing becomes you're drawn to drawing.
Yeah, I am
And
very
why-
much so.
And why is that?
It started as me just mimicking my brother, because my
Yeah.
brother's a really talented artist, and I guess I just really sort of idolized him, as lots of younger sibs do. And I was just mimicking him for many years. I couldn't even draw. I was just like, I would just mimic him. And then when I was probably or like late, no, it started quite early, like the minute we arrived in Australia, so 9 onwards. I just found it to be this thing that took me to another place where I felt there was no time, no feeling of, I guess, almost no sense of self in a way. I would just get so immersed and lost in it. And it was the one place that I felt really safe, and I felt a place that I felt I belonged, even though it felt sort of like there was no time and place. It was just like a state in which I felt like I belonged. And so from that moment onwards, I identified it as a space that I loved being, because it made me feel really empowered. And I think and it's a thing that I still love, that I find really magical about cooking and painting, is that they're both acts of creation that come from making something out of nothing. So, you have a blank canvas and you're able to create a world or a three-dimensional form that people recognize and it can impact people very emotionally. And that's the same with food. You get ingredients on their own are nothing, but if you know how to, create, all the chemistry with it that creates a delicious meal, you can really affect people with that. So I think from early on, I sort of, it tweaked to me that, yeah, these are things that are important to me.
And you say that you felt safe there. Safe from what?
I was really lonesome as a kid. And I used to think that it was because I was a migrant. But when I think back to when I was in Malaysia, I was also very on the outer. So I think I kind of just popped out like that.
Yeah.
I sort of always have felt that I've been beamed in from somewhere else. So yeah, I think just it made me feel like capable.
Yeah.
And it put me in a state where I felt like I didn't need approval from anyone else, because I knew that what I was doing was good.
And you no doubt had lots of tools and supplies for your art because your parents owned a news agency.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. So when we first moved to Australia, they became postmasters. So we had a news agency that had a post office attached to it. And all school holidays, after schools were spent there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sitting in the back or sitting somewhere drawing.
Yeah. No. We were like slave labor.
Oh, right. Okay. So you worked. You worked for your
we
supplies.
worked. Yeah, we worked.
You've talked about cooking. So that was what came next, if I understand your trajectory. Was it painting or cooking first?
Very samey, actually,
Yeah.
because when we first arrived in Australia was when I started to bake like quite a lot as a kid. And on school holidays, we were just sort of left to our own devices. And so
What is that, latchkey kids? Is
yeah,
that what it is? Yeah.
yeah.
as parents
So
working?
I did. My auntie Kim was always around.
Yes.
But my brother and I were, if we weren't at the news agency, we would be at home, and so I would just have a little schedule of baking.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And how old would you be?
9. I was 9.
Okay, not dangerous at all, right? You think about it.
I
Like
know.
the oven and the cooking and
No, Mum was very particular the way she
Yes.
taught me to do things.
Okay.
So I was very, very
So at
fastidious.
9, you're by yourself and you're baking and you're following recipes or making stuff up?
Yeah. No, following recipes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you making?
Something that I still sell at Jamface, actually.
Really?
Yeah, melting moments was like one of my
Oh.
first things I learned how to make.
Gosh, usually kids start with like banana bread or a
Yeah.
chocolate cupcake, and you
Yeah.
were like, nah, into melting moments.
Melting moments and sponges were my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's obviously you have hosted cooking shows, you've written countless incredibly successful cooking books, but now you've joined the Masterchef franchise, well, again, because you were on season 1. What's
Yeah.
it like all these years later? What's it been, 15 years?
Yeah,
to
I was
be-
in season 12 as well.
Okay, so season 1. Oh,
yeah.
yes, the celebrity.
Yeah, I did Back to Win.
Yeah.
Back to Win. Yeah.
So you were season 1, then the back to win for the winners.
Yeah.
And now a judge on the other side. What's it been like?
It's
Not wearing an apron this time.
Yeah, I have felt until it's been screened, I've felt I found it quite unnerving, because I think when you're a contestant, you're just tearing around witlessly trying to save your butt in the competition.
Okay, so perhaps not paying as much attention to the cameras.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just learn to
Mm.
you don't notice them probably like 2 weeks in, honestly.
Yeah.
But I think I was just so conscious of the fact that, everyone's going to be hanging on my every word, and
Yes.
criticizing my appearance or how I eat. You just never know what it's going to invite.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, it's a massive responsibility to, determine the future of the contestants within the competition. And so many things, and just technically how I would manage having to describe food on the spot like that. Like, that's quite a lot of pressure. I'm very good in conversation, but when it comes to sort of descriptors, I think I'm a writer, and I like writing because I like to think about how I want to say things.
Yeah,
So the
okay.
fact that all of that is just, you just have to come up with, because you have to describe what you're tasting. I found that very scary.
Right.
And what else? I think I just didn't know whether I could do it. All of it. Didn't know whether I could do it.
And you've done it.
I've done it.
And what have you learnt about
I've
yourself?
I think I often do this with projects, actually, where I finish and I think, oh, that was dreadful. I don't know why I did it. This is clearly not my bag. I don't even know why I'm here.
Yeah.
And then it screens, and I'm like, oh, I did say that, and that was kind of cute.
Yeah, okay.
So I think what comforts me is that I am completely myself, and what I thought I had to offer is what I am offering the show, which is the empathy. Because I've been there,
Absolutely.
so many times, and I truly understand every sort of movement and emotion that any of the contestants might be going through. Some people for some people it's unique, and I wouldn't understand, like, people having spouses and children that are at home, and the pressures of that, because I've never had that in the competition. But in terms of just performance in the kitchen and, getting creativity sort of fatigue and just managing the emotions of the ups and downs and all that kind of stuff, I totally am with them. In fact, I think I'm more with them than I am on my side. And often I'm a bit distracted.
Oh, right.
Yeah, if you talk to the producers, they're like, yes, that is correct. She's always daydreaming. And it's because my brain's ticking over as to what I would do in that situation.
Well, as an empathetic person, you no doubt would have felt what the production team and some of the other hosts were feeling. It's obviously the season following Jock's passing.
Yeah.
And his very tragic death. What was that like navigating?
It was really tricky, and I actually didn't like talking about it at the beginning because I didn't know how to talk about it, and I wasn't sure I just wasn't sure how to deal with it. But I think how I talk about it is because everyone's been asking me, oh, isn't it amazing that you've got this new role now? And I always just say respectfully, I'm so happy about it, but it's also an interesting sort of double-edged sword, because the reason why it's happened is because of his passing. So life is mysterious and cruel and all those things, you can just never predict why or how or, things happen. It just is, Yeah, life can be really, really cruel.
Absolutely. You mentioned something else that could be quite cruel earlier, and that is the amount of scrutiny hosts, well, particularly women in the public eye face, what they're wearing, how they're eating. Were you conscious of how you chew and what you wore, and knowing that that's all going to be picked to pieces?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm very conscious of those things. And
Unfairly, I'm not in any way suggesting it should happen, but it is an unfortunate reality.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it was really interesting because I found it quite unnerving for most of the way into the shoot, because the producers were very hesitant to give us much feedback, the new judges. And I found that really frustrating because I couldn't tell whether I was doing a good job or a bad job.
Yeah.
And when it was all over, they kind of said, and all they kept on saying to me was, just be yourself, just be yourself.
Well, that's good advice.
And I was like, well, I am, but I just want a bit of feedback. And in hindsight, I realized it's because they just wanted us to find our own voices, and they didn't want to influence us to go either way, like overperform something that we perceived that they liked or were looking for, or, be something that, or on the other end of the spectrum, do something that start to behave in a way that wasn't us at all. So I think they were just wanting us to find our own voices and our own identity in that space, because everyone, I think, fulfills a different role. So, yeah.
So did you seek advice? Like, did you chat to Melissa or chat to other? I mean, I know you've got plenty of television experience yourself, but
Yeah.
being on a commercial platform
Yeah, I
brings.
didn't.
No.
No, I didn't. For that same reason, actually, because I did it for myself, but then I didn't realize that's what the producers were doing with us. So, yeah, I didn't really want anyone to kind of influence the way that I thought about it. And the other thing is, I did call Gary, actually. I spoke to Gary. And it's such a different show now as well, because there's 4 judges, and I think the way they make the show is just more compact. So there's less, it's more intense and more compact time-wise, the shoot schedule. So it's very different, and their dynamic is so different. So it makes it intrinsically different. So even though they're offering advice, he had really good advice.
What was that?
It was just be yourself. Yeah, be yourself. Same thing.
Yeah.
He's like, you can do it, you know. But yeah, I didn't really.
Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of figure it out.
And just something I'm naturally curious about when I see you tasting all the judges tasting all of that delicious food.
Yeah.
Like, do you get full? Or do you like not eat beforehand? What's the
Sometimes
trick?
yeah. If we do know that we have a tasting, we'll have a light lunch. But sometimes if we're really hungry, we'll scarf, and then we'll be
That's the
like,
other thing,
we'll be like, that was bad.
Yeah.
But we taste very little.
Yes.
Yeah, we
I
don't
see the
really go
tiny
nuts
little-
unless we love the dish. Then we just scarf it down.
Yeah.
But I was actually going to say, when you were talking about scrutiny, you won't believe this, but eating in public is like a bit of a phobia of mine. Which
Oh
is,
my gosh!
I know.
Look what you signed up for.
I know. Like, I don't even like eating on my own.
Ah.
Like, because I always think, or if you're on your own, I think people are watching you eat.
Yeah.
So it's quite hilarious, the position I found myself in.
And so you've presumably overcome that phobia.
Yeah, just have to.
Yeah.
So much
wow.
of my career has been that. It's just sort of like a moth to the flame, you know? Like, I've just sort of gone, yep, this is happening. Let's do it.
And I can't help but notice among the really devout Masterchef followers,
Yeah.
and there are many,
Yeah.
that there seems to be these theories that the judges have pre-picked who's going to win, or that there are favourites. And you, obviously, having been on the contestant side twice and now on the judges' side,
Yes.
do tell.
I am so glad you've asked this question, because that was something that I was quite shocked and incredibly happy about, being on this side of the fence as a judge, because I completely fell prey to that as well, thinking that there was some kind of agenda or, lots of conspiracy theories. As you're going through the competition, your head's melting. You're quite vulnerable to that kind of thing. And what it boils down to is, we always judge only on the dish that day. We don't judge on potential. We don't judge on past dishes.
Right.
It's literally that day. So even if you are clearly like the most talented cook in the competition, it does not mean that you're going to get all the way through, because you can make a really bad decision on one day, and that's what gets you kicked out.
Right.
And that's something that I just couldn't get my head around, because I started to get greedy in terms of trying to pull more and more tricks, because I wanted to stick my head out ahead of the pack. And the producers kept on saying to me, all we can tell you is stop doing that. If the brief is to make a cake, why are you trying to make 2 cakes? Right? Because I would do weird stuff like that. Like, I'd be like, I'm going to make 2 cakes and show them how good I am. And then I'd make 2 average cakes. And the person that did 1 cake and really well wins, even though my 2 cakes were both really complicated and showed like a lot of technique, but I didn't nail the techniques. So we have to judge for face value. And so sometimes it's luck. Sometimes it's like who cooks. Everyone might cook terribly on that day, and it's the one who cooks the least
terribly.
Yeah, terribly.
Okay.
I mean, that rarely ever happens, but like that, sometimes it does, you know, because the challenge is just particularly tricky, or
they
and
run out of time.
or it's a stage in the competition when everyone's just really fatiguing as well.
Yeah.
You know, that happens as well. So yeah, I'm here to tell you it's completely legit, and we have like doozies in the decision making room. Like, we really debate it out. Yeah, because sometimes it just comes down to, would you go back for a second bite? That was delicious, but would you go back for a second bite? And with that one, you know, the plating was terrible. Like, do we take points away from that? So we have to break it down to the most minutest sort of
Yeah.
element or principle that we think is a value when a dish of food is put in front of you. So that's how it happens.
And it's so fascinating to watch the evolution of Masterchef. It's 15 years now.
Yeah.
15
Yep.
years. We've seen the Bachelor franchise coming to an end.
Mhm.
Masked Singer, which obviously had a shorter
Mhm.
a life. Are there any concerns about Masterchef being on the chopping block, or do you think that the format is so universal, or that food has a longer, strangely to say, food has a longer shelf life than romantic reality TV shows?
Yeah, I'd like to think that MasterChef has this really wholesome, timeless quality about it, and there's no hijinks. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just different people every time. They have these really earnest hopes and dreams, and I think there's something about it that's very, I think has a lot of legs, and I think it'll go on for a while still. Yeah, for sure. And I don't know if you know, but I'm pretty sure it's the most successful of its franchise in the world.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's because I think Australia has got such a diverse food culture because we're a
Yes.
young country. We borrow from so many different cultures. Whereas I think a lot of the master chefs throughout the world have like it's more singular the way they cook. So like let's just say Dutch master chef is like a lot of Dutch influenced food, or Indian master chef is just mainly Indian food, Malaysian master chef, blah blah blah. So whereas Australian master chef, it's just very incredibly diverse culturally. And I think we're definitely, for its time, we were real trailblazers in representation, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I can't let you go without asking, what are you currently loving to cook and eat?
I have really shifted the way I cook because I'm on my own now.
Yeah.
But also I love I think I'm leaning more and more into, because I garden as well, I've got that direct connectivity with ingredients. And so I just love to cook with seasonal ingredients, and I do very little to them. It's just olive oil, salt, pepper, lemons, because I've got lemons in the garden as well. So for me, like I love just going, because I'm at the farmers market anyway every Sunday for my little stall at Janfe's. I'll just walk around and get whatever seasonal veg, and then roast veg. Love roast veg, but I'm really into baking at the moment. Sorry, not baking. I'm really into making bread at the moment.
Oh, right.
All sorts of bread.
So bread and roast vegetables.
Yeah. Yeah, and all types of bread, like everything from brioche to milk rolls to focaccia to I've kind of like hopped off the sourdough train.
I think the pandemic killed sourdough. It was overkill for
Yeah,
sourdough.
it's so high maintenance. It's
Yeah.
like literally like having a little pet, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because you have to
yeah.
feed the
Yeah,
mother and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm kind of off that. But yeah, I just find it's just so comforting working with yeast. There's something like very cozy and like, even if I don't eat it, I love, like, people always welcome like a gift of bread, you know?
Yeah.
It's a really lovely thing. Yeah. So I love making bread.
That is it for this episode of The Weekend Briefing. It's a place where we have the opportunity to get to know the interesting and influential people behind the headlines. We want to hear from you. Make sure you leave a comment below, like and subscribe. Catch you next week.